you feel that? We are that. Hard to know that during the week, right? Which is probably one of the reasons why you're here. Building muscle memory. Remembering that truth that I am whole, but so are you, and holy, even in the face of the worst stuff, which is what we're here to talk about today, the worst stuff. Okay, maybe I shouldn't say the worst. Sit down. Maybe I shouldn't say the worst stuff, but the biggest stuff, the stuff that a lot of people face. We call them world problems. We've been looking at all the issues that we face here in this human experience and how to take these truths that we talk about on Sundays and apply them to soothe those problems into nothingness. And this is the week we talk about those things that many of us experience around the world. And I asked you to come up with what those might be. And up here on the screen, you said, you struggle and you see the world struggling with speaking out against injustice, about the issues of hate and bigotry and prejudice. You mentioned suffering of poverty and disease and hunger. And those issues associated with our planet, with animal exploitation and water and air pollution that can just feel completely overwhelming. How can I, little old me, solve these great big problems? And so I decided to reach out even further this week, and I put something out on Facebook. My question up here on the screen said that knowing we have the ability to be kind, share our resources, treat each other with respect, and care for our planet, why don't we? Now, first of all, just take that in. We have the ability to be kind, to share our resources, to treat each other with respect, and to care for our planet. Why don't we, as a whole, as a human race? And here's what you guys put up on Facebook. I got lots and lots of responses, so I kind of summarized them. And I would say that the ones that I heard the most were, it's just so overwhelming to even know where to begin when you face these big issues. They seem like really giant problems. Or people are just too self-centered. It's all about me, 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 and getting my needs met. A lot of you said, we don't do that for others because we either fear we won't have enough left for us or we already don't have enough to share the good with others. Some of you recognize that it's this belief that we're separate from one another that causes these problems. And also the fear came up a lot. Fear of other people. Fear that they won't like me if I step in and try and correct things. Or we're taught from an early age, to watch out. I had a great input from Jill, who spent time in Africa. Ask her story about being in Africa. Raise your hand, Jill. So afterwards, ask her about her time in Africa and the very difference in culture there about whether strangers are dangerous or whether you shouldn't just, trust anyone, because it's a little bit different there. We also have, and the ego has an inherent need for greed, so keeping it close to ourselves. And another common one was that some of us are just naive about what's going on around the world. We're unaware of what our values really are. We're unaware of the impact that we have on the world, or we're unaware of our ignorance and what impact it has on the world. So lots of excuses, and we may say legitimate reasons for not addressing these major world problems. One of the easy ways out was we assign it to others. So we have a bunch of groups and organizations that we assign these big problems to. That's one of the reasons that our government was formed, and law enforcement, and the SPCA, and the EPA, and Medicaid, and hey, how about those churches? They might be responsible for cleaning up some of this mess. Have you heard that before? Silence, crickets. You're out there, I know you hear me. So I don't think it matters how many groups that we continue to form to solve these problems. I don't think that is how we're going to be able to approach these and really make a difference in the world. Because it just creates more and more and more separation. And I'm going to ask you today to open your hearts to a different idea, that our solutions begin in our own consciousness. Our own consciousness. So, Christina, let's put this list up here. We've got a lot of approaches, to these world problems that either create these world problems or we try and solve these world problems from greed or control or violence or separate ourselves from each other. But I'm asking you to shift over to the right side of this list in consciousness and start getting up in the morning from an attitude of generosity and kindness. Are you up for that? Let that be your first thought when you think out into your life today, to be open to inspiration instead of doing all the things that we've tried and failed at in the past. And most importantly, to think there's only one of us here. Oneness consciousness. That's a big one. That's a hard one for the brain to grasp, so we're not going to go to the brain for that. We're actually going to move into our heart, our spirit, to know what that feels like and what it means to us. So take a breath, because I'm going to talk about something that you might not like. But gosh, let's see, what is 2024? So 23 years ago this month, on September 11th, the United States was attacked. Probably one of the first times that many of us were alive for that. And during that attack, it was an interesting response that we had. Because there was technology available now, we had instant experience of what the world around us thought of this. We got a lot of sympathy immediately. Who was alive? Anybody here alive on 2001? Okay, good. Woo. All right, so you get this instant response from the world of sympathy. But there was also something else that we learned. And if you were paying attention, what we were learning through communication was that the United States of America was not as well loved as we thought it was. That everybody wasn't on our side. Some of us saw us as the big brother, and others saw us with the one with the big stick, and we knew how to use it. And one of the ways that we responded to all of this as a country was we hunkered down, we shut the doors, we closed ourselves off, and every yard had a flag in it, and every bumper had a sticker on it. What did it say? Does anybody remember what that sticker said? God bless America. Yeah. And in that moment, when I saw those stickers go up, I just went, I think we're missing it. We're still missing it. That our problem isn't solved by God blessing only America. That our consciousness has got to start opening up to God bless the world. That we are all one, that we are a human race, we all have very similar needs. And until we can get to that place where I'm in trouble, I must protect my crowd and separate from you. And instead, open my heart and go, come on in, we're all going through this together. Let's see what we can do about this. Something that Catherine Ponder, one of the greats in Unity, wrote up here on the screen. If we can praise and give thanks for another's blessings, rather than be envious and jealous and critical, then we can be assured that those same blessings or even greater ones will come to us. That's how we are blessed, is to be excited for the blessings that are happening to others. So we're asking for a shift in consciousness where instead of taking these problems personally, like a personal affront, and becoming defensive and going on the offense, I'm going to ask you to turn the other direction, because when you get offended personally by some big problem in the world, or you have to defend that group of that problem in the world, all we're doing is approaching this from the level of the ego. And that's what got us in this problem in the first place. So I'm not asking you to deny that there's a problem. We still have a problem that needs to be approached in some way. But how about if we shift the consciousness to a higher level, a spiritual level, which raises us above the problem, opens our heart and mind to the solutions that can really cure things, and then become part of that. Instead of reacting to the problem, it's responding from the higher consciousness and the higher ideas that can actually make a difference in the world. Are you up for that? One of you. Okay, well, let's see, maybe by the time we finish, maybe there will be more on board, I don't know. So remember, none of you remember this, but, well, maybe one or two of you remember that before you got into the body as a spiritual being, you're in this realm of bliss, really. Everything's going well, y'all get along, y'all love each other, you got every need met, it's wonderful. And then we get this great idea to come into this lower, slower dimension in these heavy, slow bodies, some heavier than others. What are you going to do about that? Okay, and when you get in there, you're going to completely forget all the good stuff. And now you've got this veil up in front of you remembering, and you're just having to deal with all these problems. But you did it on purpose. Just keep reminding yourself, I did this on purpose. I came in here to challenge myself so that every time I face one of these world problems, my challenge is to view it and approach it from my spiritual consciousness. That's the challenge. Would you not agree? That is the challenge, to remember who we really are and to approach it from a higher point of view. And we signed up for this before we left the spiritual dimension and said, sign me up. So Jesus was trying to give us a clue as to how to approach this when he said, agree with your adversary quickly. And I love how Unity metaphysically interprets Scripture. So up here on the screen, here's Eric Butterworth's version of what that means. Your adversary is the adverse reaction of your own consciousness. So instead of it as an enemy or an entire country that you're warring against, think of it as your adverse level of thinking, your own consciousness that's kind of warring against you. So he says, it's not another person, it's yourself. So to agree with your adversary means to get your own consciousness in tune so that the love consciousness flows, so that you are non-resistant, so that you are a creative person in your approach to your world. Get your inner thoughts in agreement, eliminate adverse reactions, and you will then find the way to deal to your advantage and creatively with persons and situations that you encounter. Now just think about that for a minute. We have the ability, when we see these world issues, to either fight against what's happening or open our hearts to a higher level of beingness and see through the eyes of God, which will take us up into a higher level of mind where all the solutions lie. This is a choice. It requires waking up in the moment and making that choice. We talk about the one presence and one power. We say it here every week. That's one of the things you want to remember when you open your eyes in the morning, that the presence is here, it's expressing all around me, and it is me. That the omnipotence, the one power, is really the only activity of God available to us, and we can either use it as it was designed to be used in love, or we can misuse it as a weapon. It will let you choose. But all the while, we have peace available to us, we have wisdom, we have love, we have all good And right here in this consciousness, there's only one of us here. That's where we want to start the day. And no matter what our eyes see on the news or in our own lives, we remind ourselves. And yet, in the midst of all this chaos, there is the allness of God here too. Take a breath. What if I said that you came here with the purpose of self-mastery, to get a hold of that ego that's part of the human experience and start teaching it how to see things? Not to react, but to let your spirit respond to things, to become a master over that human low-level consciousness and teach it how to think. This is ours to do, and you have the power to do it because of who you really are. So I'm going to ask you to, there's almost a violent spirit in us. When we see tragedy and violence out in the world, we almost respond with that same energy. Like, that is so wrong. What can I do about that? Right? And then you kind of want to put people in boxes and say it's their fault. But no fighting against a problem is going to solve it. No fighting against a problem is going to solve it. All that means is that you start becoming more of the problem. You start radiating at that frequency. You start energizing the world around you at that frequency. You're contributing to it and making it worse when you try to fight against a problem. When you approach this with this energy of, I can't stand that this is happening. I've got to do something. I've got to get those idiots out of, or I've got to make sure that they're no longer doing that. And you can feel it, a negative energy that our ego thinks this is the way to handle it. But all you're doing is contributing to the problem. We want to get our energy, our spirit, our consciousness aligned with God so that how we move forward in this is from light, from love. And I know it may seem like, well, if I don't fight against it, then nothing will get done. And I'm telling you, if you fight against it, you're just making it worse. So we're asking about how to take this lower consciousness frequency and raise it up out of the problem. Raise it up out of the problem. Become the truth that you are, that we talk about here, we sing about here. We are one in the Spirit. Did we not sing that just this morning? Great song for today. And we keep repeating these divine ideas so that we become not only a radiating energy of that truth, but we're sending it out into the collective consciousness. And we bring more people with us. That's when Jesus was saying metaphysically, is when I be lifted up, I draw all men to me. When the Christ in us is foremost in our consciousness, we lift the world around us up to it, if you are willing, if you are awake to that. Take a breath. So one of the things that we learn to do right off the bat when we're born is to separate ourselves, because I have a body, and so do you, and they're separate. And this is part of our problem right off the bat, is our belief in separation. And from the body, then we form a family separate from that family over there. Now we're more separate. And then you know how it goes. I mean, it's groups, and then it's cultures, and then it's countries, and it's, my country is stronger and your country is weaker, and these differences just keep multiplying and multiplying and multiplying. Think right now, see if you can check in with your heart and say, what group am I a part of that separates me from a group that I've got an opinion about that I don't like? No? I hear you're finding one. So, Don, was that you just said that?
I think we find separation.
Other churches, yeah. So I want you to just take that in for a minute. I actually had a response to that. It wasn't a happy response. Suddenly, I had to look at myself. How many times have I pitted unity against mainstream Christianity? Anybody? Okay, yeah. Liars. No, I'm just kidding. That was harsh, sorry. See, that's how the ego works, Before you know it, it's that easy. It's that easy. Cindy? I'm hating the haters. Yeah, you're still in the hate mode, right? Yeah. So even if you classify yourself more advanced or enlightened than that other group down the street, you just separated yourself again, making yourself better and them worse. So we don't solve problems that way. And I'm not saying that the goal is for us all to think the same way. That's not what I'm saying at all. The whole joy of spirit being here and expressing itself infinitely is to have infinite expressions of itself so that we're not all doing the same thing or approaching things the same way. It's just when it starts to go downhill in energy and it's unlike God that we want to make some changes. Have as many churches as you want. I keep saying I would like to believe that the point of unity is to honor all paths to God. As long as it gets you there, hallelujah. So that's not our issue. Our issue is when we judge them for being wrong or bad or not as smart as, that we start contributing to world problems. So how about if we recognize that there's only one of us here, it's looking through your eyes right now, and the same one that's looking through your eyes is also over here looking through my eyes. Just take that in for a minute. Yeah, there's only one spirit, one presence here, and it's looking through your eyes right now, and the same one that's looking through your eyes is also looking through my eyes, and her eyes, and his eyes, and everybody's eyes. That might help you get into that state of, that consciousness of oneness if you can. And as we separate ourselves out into all these divisions, I'm asking you to start to sift through them. The first thing that you bump into that is a common denominator is what? What's our common denominator on this planet? We're all human. We're all human. I think. Pretty sure. We're all human. And then you sift down even further inside of the human, and you discover you're all spirit. And we call, our languaging in unity is that spirit we call the Christ. And we define the Christ as God expressing individually, uniquely, as each one of us. So now we took that one spirit and we broke it out into a bunch of little spirits, but it's still the one spirit expressing in multiple roles. So there's a oneness there, and our salvation, not only for ourselves but the world around us, is to be able to see through those divine eyes all the time. When I posted this online on Facebook about why you think we have such troubles with these things, somebody put a quote up by Lester Levinson. Look on the screen. The very first limitation is, I am an individual separate from the all. Eliminate that, and you eliminate all limitation, all trouble, all sickness, and all poverty. What is it we need to eliminate? I am an individual separate from the all. That's the beginning of our problems. How many of you had parents or grandparents that would say, the world is going to hell in a handbasket? And usually that meant the upcoming generation is taking us down, right? Yeah. And what's so interesting is the upcoming generation got to a certain age and then they turned around and said the same thing to the next generation. So always, the world is going to hell in a handbasket. Is that true? I don't know about that. But I know people whose hearts are aching, bleeding, I might even say, and they can barely function in life because they are so convinced that that is true in one way or another, that there is no goodness left in this world. There is no goodness or kindness or graciousness in people anymore. And they're just overwhelmed by it. So first of all, I want to invite you to study spiral dynamics. Anybody here heard of spiral dynamics? If you did, probably from me. So spiral dynamics is looking at the evolution of humankind since caveman days and how we have evolved over thousands of years. And it really is at a level of consciousness. That's how we evolve, at a level of consciousness. I don't think we have grown anything physically on our bodies. Anything new physically? Anybody? Any scientists know about that? No? Okay. So really it is. Our evolution is really consciousness, okay? So let that soothe your soul and realize we are making progress and we can make a whole bunch more. And I came across this book this week by an author by the name of R.J. Spina. And he, believe this or not, I don't really care, but it just interested me to think, wouldn't that be nice if? And he has the ability to get into meditation and kind of time travel. And so here's what he said about his journey in one of his meditations. The year is 5496, so that's, 3,000 plus years ahead. It's the end of a specific cycle of consciousness that represents humanity graduating into a new level of self-understanding. Everything and everyone here are so different. We're all at peace. We live in harmony with everything. There's only one small patch of earth where those who wish to war only war with themselves. It's a self-imposed prison. They want to be there. They still reject love. I think there's hope. I think we're evolving. And the reason we evolve is because more and more and more of us are becoming aware of who we really are as spiritual beings, which is why we sit here on Sunday mornings and you tune in anytime during the week to remind yourself, I'm a spiritual being, already perfect and whole and complete, and so is everyone else on this planet as spirit. We just have to get the physical dimension to rise up. As Jesus told us, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Just open your mind higher and see it here amongst you, as you. That's our work. I'm going to take a chance here. Is there anybody that was a vegetarian in the 1950s? Would you stand up if you were a vegetarian in the 1950s? Okay, just stay, wait. Stay standing, please. Stay standing. Okay, anybody that was a vegetarian in the 1960s, would you please stand? Okay, 70s, 80s. Okay, here comes Amanda. 90, oh, there's more back there. Any others? Not in the 90s you became a vegetarian? 2000, 2010, 2020. How about just in the last few years, you're a vegetarian now and you weren't before? Okay, where did we start with? 0. Then we had 1. Just keep standing. So how many do we have now? Does that not give you hope? I mean, not that, you're not evolved if you're not a vegetarian. I'm not necessarily setting that message, but my hunch is that's probably where we're headed as a species. You can sit down. And we're continuing to evolve. I have to ask Beth this question. How many times, do you have any feel for how many years now we've been doing collecting the styrofoam to recycle it? 5 years, yeah. Yeah, we used to have like a couple bags of it before you can't even get into the room now. There's so much recycled styrofoam in that closet over there because we're having another drive. That's how we're evolving. We're just becoming more aware and we're making a change consciously. And we're taking care of our planet. So relax, have a little peace there, and recognize that we are on the way, and every time we advance in consciousness, we bring others with us. So let's go back to that list one last time of why we don't deal with these problems. Do you see anything up there that's an actual physical limitation? I'll just tell you, no. These are consciousness level limitations. Every single one of these are based on how we believe and how we approach our life in consciousness. So know that there's really no big major physical problems that are going to require a lot of money that we don't have. Or that we have, super muscles or something that are required or whatever. It's about what we do in consciousness. So it's consciousness that got us this way, and it's consciousness that will set us free, and it's a choice. So just keep waking up in the morning and asking yourself, how can I base my life in truth today? How can I recognize that God is expressing as me, and that the fullness of God's love and wisdom and life and supply and peace and goodness are already within me, and I can be that now. And the more we can keep coming back to that question and choosing at least one of those qualities to be today, the more often we do that, the more we become it, the more we radiate it, the more that it expresses outward into the world and affects those around us and lifts the collective consciousness up, so we will start to see heaven on earth at some point. Be patient, be committed, not to fight against something, but to be what you want in consciousness first. It was no small thing when Gandhi said, be the change that you want to see in the world. Let's take some time and let me share this one last thought. This one came to me this week that I don't even know who wrote it, but I thought, wow, this is perfect for what we're doing. Let's read it together. The way you alchemize a soulless world into a sacred world is by treating everyone as if they are sacred until the sacred in them remembers. Take a picture of that. Yeah. They will remember. We remember first. And then let's just take some time in meditation with this. That which gives us a really good chance of remembering who we are is doing exactly this. Spending time in the quiet, turning our thoughts towards the presence and the power of the divine. Give ourselves permission to set aside all the earthly problems. They might be there when we're done. But for now, we give ourselves permission to come back into the knowing of who we are and what is true. I breathe in deeply and release all tension. Do that a couple more times at your own pace. Here in the presence of the allness of good, available to each of us, is the fullness of love. I need go nowhere. I need conjure no money, no power, no control. I simply am present, aware and awake to the allness of God. The goodness that I seek is ready and willing to express. The wisdom that I seek is the wisdom that is seeking. The life flow that I desire for my body is here in every cell, waiting to strengthen and renew as we allow. The kindness that I desire for myself and for the world beats in every heart. A heart filled with the spirit of generosity, a knowing that there is always enough, and so grateful and glad to be a giving channel of that good. And should something of planet Earth, of prejudice, of suffering, of violence come across my path, I breathe deeply, knowing that in the midst of this human illness, there is the allness of God. I return home to my higher self, the place I'm feeling right now, peace and love and creativity. I rise without fear to this place of knowing that what is needed here in this human moment is available now. I can relax and trust that it becomes known not only in my own heart, but in hearts around the world. That I behold a human race that is grounded in spirit. I see that divine wisdom leading the way in every mind, and I feel the flow of that divine love softening every heart, seeing that we come together as one, finding our way to our higher self, to the higher truth, to the kingdom of heaven here and now. I say yes to this truth that we are, and I choose moment to moment to be the presence of good. This is how goodness is born and evolves and multiplies and transforms the world. And I am grateful. And so it is. Amen.